which is inconsistent with the way you see yourself. Personally speaking, let me tell you something. First 2.5 years I was in sales, and that's where I got my professional start. I was not what you'd call an overwhelming success. As a matter of fact, I wasn't even a whelming success. Now, that doesn't mean I didn't sell a lot, because I did. I sold my furniture, sold my car. And that is reasonably close to the truth. We had a very difficult time, and as time goes on, I'll share a little more about that. But then one day I went to a meeting. It was in Charlotte, North Carolina. It was a meeting I came within a gnat's eyelash of missing, because at 5:30 the next morning, when I was supposed to go to that meeting, I'd been there the day before, spent the day, didn't learn a thing. Have you ever been to one of those all day, not learned a thing? I didn't. Next morning at 5:30, the alarm clock sounded off. Now, in those days, it was an alarm clock. Now, of course, I recognize it as an opportunity clock. Because if you hear it, you got an opportunity to get up and go. If you can't hear it, that might mean you done got up and gone. Well, anyhow, every day is a good day, and if you don't believe it, you just try missing one of them, all right? So, opportunity clock got me out of bed, except that day it was the alarm clock. Force of habit got me up. I cracked the Venetian blinds. We were living in this luxury apartment, 3 bedrooms, or 3 rooms rather, above a grocery store, just to emphasize the luxury part of it. I looked outside, and the weather said, Ziglar, no sane human being would get up and go out there in that weather. I was driving a little Crosley automobile that didn't have a heater in it. So I did what any intelligent person would do. I lay down and we get back in bed. But as I lay there, the words of my mother came back to me from my childhood. And words are so incredibly important. They change lives. As a child, she said, your word is your bond. And if your word is no good, eventually you're no good. When they had given me the job, which it took me over 2 months to get, they just didn't think I could sell. And the first 2.5 years, all I did was prove they was about right. When they'd given me the job, they had made me promise that I would attend all sales meetings and all training sessions. And in 2.5 years, not only had I never missed one, I had never even been late for one. I rolled out of bed. I went to the meeting. That day changed my sales career dramatically. My hero was conducting the meeting that day. His name was P.C. Merrell. Mr. Merrell had set all of the records. He had written the training program. He was a man of absolute integrity. Now, why he chose to do this, I will never know. But when the meeting was over, there were only 21 of us there that day, but he pulled me aside and said, I want to talk with you personally. I was truly flattered. Here was a man whom I loved and trusted and respected, and he chose me out of 21. Now, why did he? I don't know. The year before, I probably had not been in the top 4,000 out of all of the salespeople in that 7,000 salesperson company. He got me aside, and it was a very short meeting. He said, Zig, I've been watching you for 2.5 years. I have never seen such a waste. And I said, well, Mr. Merrell, what do you mean? He said, I believe you could be a great one. I believe you could be a national champion. I believe you could go all the way to the top. I believe that someday, if you just believed in yourself and went to work on a regular schedule, that you could, number one, be the national champion. Number two, someday you could become an executive in this company. Now, folks, you got to understand my background. I'm the 10th of 12 children. I asked my mom one time, I said, Mom, why so many? And she said, well, son, where do you think I should have stopped? I'm glad y'all have got such a great sense of humor. I might as well tell you, when having an inclination to laugh, you ought to do it, because if you don't, the laughter reverses itself, comes back inside, and spreads your hips. So you ought to be sure and get with the program there. Well, anyhow, as a youngster, my dad had died when I was 5 years old. There were 6 of us too young to work. We survived because we had 5 milk cows and a large garden. I was very small as a child. I weighed less than 120 pounds, fully dressed, when I entered the 12th grade in high school. I used to fight everything that moved. My dream was that someday I was going to be able to retire there in Yazoo City, Mississippi. I was going to have my own butcher shop, an acre of ground on the outskirts of town, so that I could have a big garden there, because everybody retired at 65 and nobody had as much money then as they did before. That was my dream, the dream of a little guy from a little town. Mr. Merrell said, "You could be a great one." I respected him enormously. I believed him. When I left that meeting that day, an entirely different person was driving that little car back home. I finished the year the number 2 salesman in America out of over 7,000 salespeople. I had the best promotion the company had to offer. The next year, I had the best promotion that was available and was the highest paid field manager in the United States. What had happened? Well, it's very important you understand a couple of things. First of all, in 2.5 years, I'd learned the sales skills. I knew how to get prospects, make appointments, handle objections, conduct demonstration, and close the sales. The salesperson was technically ready. But until the person got ready, nothing was happening. The picture you have of yourself is so important. The words my mother used on me as a child were enormously important. The words Mr. Merrell said to me were enormously important. What I want to say about words is very simple. Helen Keller, after the great Anne Sullivan had spent some time with her first real day of school, here's what Helen Keller wrote. "I learned a great many new words that day. I do not remember what they all were, but I do know that mother and father and sister and teacher were among them. Words that were to make the world blossom for me like Aaron's rod with flowers. It would have been difficult to find a happier child than I was as I lay in my bed at the close of that eventful day and lived over the joys that it brought me, and for the first time longed for a new day to come." Folks, words make such a dramatic difference. When the picture changes, then every facet of your life is also going to change. You got to be the right kind of person. You got to do the right things in order to have all that life has to offer. Now, what is that? A reasonable amount, even a large amount of the things that money will buy. Now, money is not the most important thing in life, but it is reasonably close to oxygen.